Rebecca, tell us a little bit about Christine Chubbuck, the character you play in this film.
Well, it's based on the true story of a woman called Christine Chubbuck, who was a newscaster in Sarasota, Florida in 1974, who, well, you know, there's the only reason that anyone ever heard of her was because she tragically committed suicide on live television.
Tell us about the research that you did in preparation. What qualities about her stuck out to you?
Well, I didn't do as much on her as people would assume, mostly because there's not a lot out there, and also because Craig Shilowich did that work when he researched to write the script, and then what the script became a sort of distilled version of the research that he did from talking to friends and co-workers and going to Sarasota, Florida, and also his personal relationship with the story, because he is someone who has went through nearly an extended period of depression, and one of the things that got him out of it was work. So when he came across the Christine Chubbuck story, he had a profound connection with it, because he thought, imagine if I had been a woman going through that, imagine if I'd been a woman in the 70s going through that, and imagine if I'd been a woman in the 70s who had my work taken away from me, would I have made it? So I felt like my responsibility was to the script, given that it was an artistic rendering of a true story that also involved these elements of someone's personal experience. You know, so what I did do in sort of after thinking that through was read a lot of books about mental health issues. Like, I read a lot of books about living with bipolar, living with depression, living with borderline personality, also the autism spectrums and schizophrenic and disaffective disorder. I mean, many things I read about, and I sort of wanted to acquaint myself with some of what it feels like to be living with that. And I had 15 minutes of footage of her doing an interview, which I watched, and to try and intuit something of the spirit of the real Christine and understand how she sounded and capture some of that.
Knowing what we know about how this is going to end, and for people who do know how it's going to end, I think it would be really easy to just kind of turn her into a sad sack, depressed. But
right.
You really root for her.
Yeah. Well, there are many ways to make this film. There's definitely the exploitative one. There's definitely the sort of terribly sort of navel-gazy, depressive one. I don't think any of those are really realistic. I think what's true and honest is the version where you see someone who is desperately trying to live. You know, it doesn't revel in darkness. It has a lot of humanity, this film. It shows a community of people who are not the baddies, who are not sort of making her how she is. We don't know why she is how she is. We just present the circumstances and let the audience talk about that. But everyone in the film is going through their own personal troubles, and everyone is doing their best to get by. There are just some people who have the tools, literally the equipment, to make it, and then there's the one central one who doesn't. And the sort of great tragedy of the film is not so much the act itself, it's watching someone who wants to make it and then doesn't see that everyone else wants her to make it.
Yeah. There's a lot of dark humor in it too.
There's a lot of dark humor. There's a lot of humor in it, yeah.
Was it hard finding a balance there?
A lot of that was in the writing. I mean, you know, it was written beautifully and with just so much honesty. And also, you know, there's the people that Craig spoke to. One of the things that always came up about Christine was that she was incredibly witty. That she had a very particular dry sense of humor, and I found her to be, you know, there are so many fascinating aspects of her character, and the fact that sometimes she's quite, you know, she's doing this performance always of being normal and getting away with it and in control, and sometimes she's really bad at that acting, and that is often funny and ridiculous, but charming. It's not at her expense. It's just to see someone struggling in pain, but also see the humanity and what's bittersweet about it at the same time, I think is a real feat of the film.